that sounds good. Casey is recording.
Looks like we lost Yasir.
Just in time. Ain't technology wonderful? Let's give him a second to rejoin. All right. Casey, do we see Yasir?
He came in and then dropped again.
Okay, he may be having difficulties. That would, we could go ahead and get started. Sam, you would be the,
Sure. So let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. And then, Chris, does someone on your team take roll or do I do that? Oh, there we go.
That was weird. Just kept kicking me out.
Okay, well, you're back and we just called the meeting to order. Thank you, Sam.
All right.
You're on.
So let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand, place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now for the Goethe Pledge.
And Casey, if you could allow me to share. Okay.
As a citizen of the world, I will follow Goethe's circle of learning. Curiosity opens my mind, ideas lead to knowledge, responsible choices show respect, cooperation strengthens others, learners are courageous, empathy creates community.
Als ein Bürger dieser Welt folge ich dem Kreis des Lernens. Neugierig, ideenreich, respektvoll, kooperativ, mutig, empathisch.
Thank you. Now for the roll call. Frank,
I'm here.
Sam,
Here.
Pete,
I'm here.
Katrin.
I'm here.
All right, moving on. I would like to make a motion to affirm the board findings pursuant to Government Code Section 54953E. Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor? Frank,
Aye.
Sam,
Hi.
Pete, Pete?
Aye.
Katrin?
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to the approval of the agenda. I'd like to make a motion. Is there a second?
I second. This is Sam.
All right, all in favor? Frank,
Aye.
Sam,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Yes.
Katrin? It's a yes for me. Public comment. Go ahead, Casey.
The public may comment on any item that is on the agenda or any other item that is in the board's jurisdiction. Members of the public who wish to comment during the board meeting may use the raise hand tool on the Zoom platform. Individual comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and the total time for this purpose shall not exceed 30 minutes per meeting. If an interpreter is needed for comments, they will be translated to English, and the time limit shall be 6 minutes. Individuals may speak 1 time per subject. The Board of Trustees reserves the right to mute or remove a member of the public if comments or actions disrupt the board meeting. Board members are prohibited from responding to or commenting on matters raised by the public that are not on the agenda. And at this time, there are no public comments.
Thank you. Moving on to consent, I'd like to make a motion to approve the regular board meeting minutes of April 18th. All in favor? Frank,
Aye.
Sam,
Yes,
Pete, it's a yes. Okay, Katrin.
Yes.
All right, Chris, ED report.
Okay. Let me go ahead and share. All right, report as usual. We start off with enrollment. We have stayed flat at 380 for the past 3 months. So, which actually at this time of the year is a good thing. Typically we drop off in enrollment at this time of the year. It's very hard to get new students in. We've dropped a few and actually gained a few, so it's balanced out. And the grade levels that you can see are relatively unchanged from the previous month. And lottery applications are indicated there. Those are the numbers that are from when we did the lottery. They are smaller now because we're working our way through that. That's on a daily basis, working through trying to keep classes filled and a little beyond filled for next year, so that we can be out ahead of the typical summer drop-off that we get. Any questions about enrollment?
Yes. I have another, sorry, I will go on video. Isn't it, so, hold on, it's not on video here. So how much are we over enrolling in a class?
We are typically at, or trying to enroll at 28, 29, which has then gives us to drop down to the target number of 26, 25 is where we're at the moment.
Is that, my question is that best practice, or should be enrolling rather than 10, 15%, 20 to 30%?
There's a argument for that. But the argument also is we would be in quite a bind if in fact we had a class, which could happen, where we enrolled, say, 32 students and all 32 show up in that particular class, whereas the class next door, there were 32 enrolled and 28 came or something like that. So it's the conundrum that we're constantly hit with. And so we looked at, I would say we are being more aggressive than last year, and we are tapping into the lottery lists earlier than last year because we found those lottery lists were essentially not very helpful in August. So we are, pushing to fill those up to the levels that we want.
Yeah, I generally would say, based on historic behavior and based on the unknown circumstances of the environment, we may want to reconsider to over-enroll more than the 10% or 15%. Just a comment for consideration. Thank you.
Any other questions for enrollment? Anyone?
I have one. Chris, how has the uptake been from the lottery acceptances so far? Has it been what you hoped?
It's been pretty typical. The thing about lottery is that if I compare it to, say, for instance, when students are trying to go from one district to another on an inter-district permit, they are only allowed to select one district with which to do that. So if they live in LA Unified and they want to attend Culver City, for instance, they can try for that one time between one school district to another. But when we talk about charter lotteries, a parent may apply to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, as many as they choose, schools. And so we do have some that put in for multiple schools and may have received different layers on that. So we're seeing a pretty typical drop off of the numbers, but we're going through these lists very quickly. The numbers go down, and we're also continuing to get post lottery applications as well. And so that's also how we fill up between now and the start of school.
Sam, any more questions?
No, thanks.
Pete? Katrin?
No questions on enrollment. Thank you.
All right.
That
ahead,
moves
Chris.
us along to now, where do we put them? So we have accepted our May 1st final offer from LAUSD, which was the same that they offered us last year, which were the 15 classrooms, 15 classrooms and 2 special education spaces. I hesitate to call them rooms, but spaces, and then one administrative space. So we accepted that, because if we don't accept it, we get nothing. We have, of course, requested the same alternative agreement that, and that's to maintain our current footprint for 2021. And so basically we're asking for 2 under the line classrooms, and the terminology there with under the line is related to that they are not counted against us later on when they tally up for over allocation. So these 2 classrooms that we're asking for would not be a penalty for us a year later when they do the calculation of it wouldn't count against us on over allocation. So that is what we have asked for. And the good news is we have held preliminary meeting already with Marina Del Rey Middle School administration. If you recall, last year, we were unable to get any traction on that. And we ended up not signing the agreement we're under this year until August, literally a week before school started. We have already essentially discussed terms and space availability. And so we are going to be finalizing that, we think, this week. It looks highly promising that we will be able to secure the 2 classrooms that we're looking for. And we will, of course, relinquish some of our shared space, particularly related to the multipurpose room and the parent center and the library in Marina Del Rey Middle School. So that is looking good. And that does match exactly how we've set up our lottery spaces. So it would allow us to do exactly what we have planned for next year. So we're hoping to move forward on that and get it signed, maybe even as soon as this week. Any questions there? Then I will go ahead and move us forward. We do a teacher development update in the early part of the year, December, and we do one now, just to let you know that we are continuing to follow our teacher development roadmap. Principals have met with teachers and done the observations according to that roadmap. And then we have focused on our PD this year, which has been on iReady implementation and also curriculum development, in particular with the German language and the work that was done in the summer and the earlier part of the year with regard to developing that out. We still have work to do, but we did make a good chunk on that, and we'll be continuing. Our teachers have received successful evaluations, so we are moving forward with contracts that are forthcoming in May. So that's where we stand with our teachers. We are in, we think, a really good place with the quality of teachers that we have. we are going to be heading into the hiring process for the positions that need to be filled for next year. And we'll be moving forward with that in May and in June, working towards filling those spaces. Any questions there?
Yes, comment, question. If we have the teachers on board we want to keep, could we contemplate to avoid, as our charter continues to be in place, to avoid the mayhem of getting teachers in the classrooms by offering multi-year contracts?
The entire scheme of or setup for how charters are run is based on the year-to-year at-will contract, which is how we've set it up. That would be something it could be considered, but it would be I think unusual in the charter world, and it would be unusual. That's kind of one of the benefits that we have is to be able to basically set up 1 year at a time with our staff and move forward. We have not had difficulty in the past few years with getting returning staff, and so I don't anticipate a problem, but it would be certainly something that could be considered maybe at another time. But that would be a pretty big departure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question. I thought we were going around, but if not, then I have a question. You had mentioned successful evaluations. What is a successful evaluation?
Where the teacher where the principal has met and determined that this is the teacher is meeting the qualifications that are listed in the evaluation tools that we have. And I can defer a little bit to Casey, who is here, just some of the detail on that for Pete.
Sure. So I meet at the beginning, and Scott goes through a similar process with the middle school teachers, but I meet with teachers individually at the beginning of the year, and we talk about their goals for the year, and then their observations are connected to the goal. Or sometimes if I have an area that I would like to look at, I'll connect the observations to those as well. And then we do reflection meetings afterwards. And then at the end of the year, we talk about progress through the year towards the goal that they've set for themselves and that we've worked on together. And then I go through that document that has all of the standards for teachers listed out on it, as well as some additional ones really specific to IB teaching and learning. And then there's a scale on there of beginning, intermediate, more advanced, and then I rate them there. We don't have any staff members this year where there are any concerns about any piece of the standards for teaching.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, just because it seems like observation and evaluation process isn't a yes/no kind of an outcome. It seems like everyone's going to be on some sort of a continuum across the spectrum of effectiveness. And so, I don't know, maybe there's some way of, and your last sentence was a little more clear, but perhaps there's some way of kind of summarizing where teachers are and what kind of work needs to be done moving forward so they can continue to improve. Thanks.
Sorry, I'll just, Katrin, any more follow-up questions?
No, thank you.
Chris and Casey, I know you presented your teacher development plans. Was it last year or the year before that? When was that exactly?
It's all a blur. Yeah, it was.
It wasn't last year. Last year was
no,
COVID.
last year. It was 2 years ago.
Got it. Got it. May make sense if you want to just shoot that off to the board or to Pete so he can make sure, because I do believe we reviewed that. And the board policy is to let you guys manage it and make sure that that's well documented and kept up to date.
Well, I think there's a difference between having a plan and implementing a plan effectively. And I'm not asking to manage the plan. I'm asking for status on the effectiveness of the plan.
I guess my question is, so would that help if they sent you what the plan is and how they're managing the effectiveness of it? Because I do recall that there's some material in there that says this is a course of constant development, and these are the metrics that they use at the end of every year, and then that they continue to implement at every cycle.
Right, right. I mean, that's right. We went through that. All I was trying to get was clarification on the term successful, because that's a little bit vague. That's all I was trying to get at. Thank you.
So would that make sense for Chris and the team to bring forth something like that? I think I understand what Pete is saying. Something not so anecdotal, but something much more, something we can see, right? Chris, does that make sense?
Mhm.
Is that something? Because this slide that says focused on iReady implementation, it's met with teachers and observations. I guess, is there anything we can see that's more objective and in line with that plan, where we can have more comfort that the plan is being implemented and it is effective? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just not quite sure what it is you want to see beyond us sharing what Casey just kind of shared at the request of the question.
This sounds like a more involved analysis that we may want to look for.
I guess my question, if I could, my question be to Pete, was Casey's explanation able to kind of answer, and is there something else we can get you specifically?
Well, so I think that was, I wanted to throw a number out, 2/3 of the way there. So I think that was much better than just saying they're successful. For me, I mean, I think the teachers are the most important element of this school. And so, you know, obviously you guys are in charge of ensuring that the teachers are as good as they can be and as effective as possible. Our job is to make sure that you're doing your job, right? So for me to know that, I need to know what's happening with the teachers and I'm not trying to create work. I mean, you've got tons of stuff to do. I just want a couple of, 2 or 3 bullet points that says these are system. Obviously, we don't want information about individual teachers because that's not appropriate. Sure. But you have iReady PD. Okay, so iReady PD, you've done some systematically. You found that teachers are able to understand or use it. They don't need. Here's what we need to focus on for next year: the interpretation of results or whatever more formative aspects. Just what are some of the concrete things that you've taken away from that, so that we know it's not just, oh yeah, well, and I know it's not this. I'm just giving an example. Just so you're saying, we looked at it and and our goal next year is to keep doing what we're doing and get better, because that's not a goal, right? So I just want to see how the results of this year's evaluation lead to the goals and objectives for next year, so that we can track the progress that's being made with them.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah, and it's something a little bit more meat on the bone, something that is quantifiable, that the board can just track year over year and say, hey, this is the area that the staff is going to focus on from a standpoint of professional development, like 2 to 3 things.
And can I just share a little bit? listening to this conversation, they're kind of like two pieces. There's the school-wide growth that's happening with all staff, but then there's also the individual teacher
Individual,
observations.
right, yeah.
And the teacher observations, which the successful evaluation piece is what kind of spurred this conversation. Those are all really unique and specific to each teacher. So there aren't as many through lines with the evaluations as there would be for what we're doing with all staff in terms of like the iReady PD and making progress towards that. So I'm a little wary about getting too detailed with the evaluation piece in terms of the specific goals that are being set, because each teacher has their own set of goals that are really specific to where they are in their practice. We do have the final sheet, that's all of the standards. That is the same for everyone. So that might be a piece of information that we would share as like a general, here's where the majority of our staff are following, and each of these falling in each of these categories at the end of the evaluation. But that's a little bit different than the overall PD plan that we have each year.
Sure, but if each teacher has an individual goal, we have some sense of the progress towards that goal. So like, let's say last year, teachers were 20% successful, or however you want to define that, we can leave it up to you, because there was a pandemic. And so of course, nobody planned for that initially. And so a lot of the stuff was set aside. It's understandable. Maybe next year the goal is to do for each teacher is different, but each teacher makes progress towards that goal. And so that's what we kind of like to see is, in general, are they making progress or are they not?
And I think, Casey, part of your original professional development plan, I think you had some general areas, like you had divided it into some general areas.
That's the standards that they're grouped in different areas.
Right. And I mean, obviously every teacher is going to have a unique set of goals, but maybe you keep it broader and say, these are the areas that we're going to be focusing. You know what I mean?
We could probably get a little more detailed that would really help this conversation forward on and looking back. If we can use this as grist for, this is a twice a year event, if this is something we can take in our next round, that will give more detail on that.
Yeah, I think, Pete, is that okay?
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you.
Frank, Sam, or Katrin, any other thoughts on this?
No, none
No.
for me.
Not for me, thank you.
Katrin, you good?
No, thank you.
All right. Go ahead, Chris.
And this is just a final quick update on our board election. We have a 2-year parent representative trustee position that was posted on May 5th. And we had one candidate who submitted the paperwork, and that is the incumbent, Katrin Kaler. And so she looks like is running unopposed. We still will have an election and formalize that, and we'll make the formal announcement with coming up when that election is completed. So May 27th is when that we'll be making that announcement. But really happy that Katrin has put her name back in the ring, and we're looking forward to a continuation here on the board of her fine work.
Katrin, I hope there isn't a write-in campaign going on right now, so just cross our fingers.
Thanks, Yasir. I'm happy to hopefully stay on.
Sorry. All right, Chris, go ahead.
All right. And then I added this on a last piece, which is our oversight visit, which was way back in February. It was on the February 3rd and 4th. And we have yet to receive our final report. So we had, normally that comes usually about a month and a half, something like that after so we were expecting it in March or April. And when it didn't come in April, I reached out to the CSD And they confirmed that the report will be forthcoming, but our lead had medical issues that we didn't realize and was having, I mean, I don't want to go into the detail of it, but was not able to complete the work at that time. And so I did talk to her, and she is hopeful and it said that the CSD will be in contact with us and will bringing us that report. She did confirm to me that everything looked good and there are no surprises. So that's good. We did not expect any surprises. We are expecting this is on a grading in 4 different areas of a 1, 2, 3, or 4, and a 3 or a 4 is a must for us. And so we expect that we will be in that. We'd love to have all 4s, but we're you know, we never know. So we are expecting to see that, but I don't know when it is. As soon as it does come to us, I will bring it to the board for their ratification information. Okay.
Does that mean we can delay sending them payment for space because it hurts our hand to write checks that large?
Yeah, I don't think that'll fly, but
It's a medical issue.
oh geez. We're yeah. We'll
I'm
wait.
with you. I'm
We'll
with you,
wait
Fee.
to receive it. We'll wait to receive it.
I still cut my checks like for my taxes by hand.
Okay, that completes that. Oops. So that completes the executive director report. On to the finance committee report. Do we have Ryan with us?
First, we gotta, I move, in case being asked, to, we need to have a motion to discuss it.
Is that your
So-
motion, or you're moving for the motion? Which one?
No, I move to.
Okay.
approve.
Then
Yeah.
I'll make the motion. Is there a second?
I second it.
All right. All in favor? Discussion, please.
Discussion, please.
So this is. Do you want me to go ahead and start the report?
Go ahead. You and Frank. If Ryan isn't here, that's fine.
I'm here.
Oh,
Okay,
sure.
great. Let me go ahead and. Okay. All right, well, we are do not have a hugely changed situation when we look at the April financials. And I'm going to let Ryan walk us through some of the details. Ryan?
Yes, this is our financial report as of the close of April. And with the close of April, we have attendance and enrollment information through month 8. Month 8 signifies our P2 month, and P2 is the period between month 1 and month 8, where we average out our average daily attendance, and that dictates our funding from now to the end of the year. You'll see that our P2 came in about 10 ADA lower than our P1 ADA. And the reason for that is there was attendance that was lost that is still being recouped through the independent study contracts that the school has out. So this is an opportunity for it to go up higher because Dr. Jones has confirmed that there are independent study cases out there that will increase our ADA from months 1 through 8. Any questions thus far? Or I'm sorry, I remember you guys have them all at the end, right? So that's our enrollment picture, we had 380 students at the end of month 8, which is the same amount that we had at the end of the previous presentation. Scrolling down to the income statement portion in purple, you'll see that, as a reminder, we are under enrolled by 44 students. As such, our local control funding formula money has been impacted. So the revenue impact of our lower enrollment is $382,000 through our local control funding formula. And we had been forecasting this throughout the year. Federal revenue has been lower, and that was due to timing of our one-time stimulus spending. That's not money that we lost. That's just a timing issue of money that will be spent next year, as opposed to this year where it was originally budgeted through our ESSER funding. Where we see other variances are in our the largest one is in grants and fundraising. We added in a tech grant that we have not yet received, but it's been awarded for this fiscal year of $36,000. And we have also had additional fundraising that wasn't budgeted for, that had to do with our Astro Camp and our outdoor science camp. That's money that has in previous years been, I guess, a wash. And that funding and that expense wasn't in the original budget. However, we put them in now, and that additional $43,000 in funding is being offset by an additional operating expense for the field trips down below. Our other local revenue, the big change there is we did not get to operate our meal program the way we intended to this year because of our pandemic, and not our pandemic, but the pandemic. And that is why we have about $24,000 less in other local, because we had to reduce our other local revenue by $33,000. That's the amount we had planned to receive through our nutrition program sales. On the expense side, we have been realizing savings in our certificated salaries, and that's due to a different staffing plan. We had a few open positions. The biggest one had to be was our in-house special education teacher. We've been outsourcing that all year, and we've realized savings in that category. We're not gonna hire for that position this fiscal year. It's an increased expenditure in our outsourced services for special education. Classified salaries, however, we have had an increased need for classified staff with additional hours and additional positions, I think, in the classroom, Dr.
Right.
Jones. And that's money that we're, I believe, offsetting with some of our one-time stimulus funds. But that was something that we've been talking about the last few board meetings, and it's something we've been planning for throughout this year. Student supplies and operating expenditure, benefits, I'm sorry to jump over that one. We continue to realize savings in our benefits, and for this year, we have about 108,000 savings from our original board approved plan. Student supplies, we are seeing $85,000 in savings. One of the big ticket items for our savings there has to do with the costs associated with the nutrition program. And because the way the program works this year, it just wasn't the way we originally planned, we're seeing a decrease in the amount of cost that would have been charged to us had the program gone forward as it normally would. The big change in our operating expenditures, I know I had said that we would be seeing increased outsourced special education costs. that's not something, oh, I'm sorry, and also outsource, not outsourced, we'd also be seeing a higher field trip expense. That's not apparent here. As you can see, we're realizing about $69,000 this fiscal year in our operating expenditures. And that's because of a combination of things that are just happening a little differently. The main driver though, for the savings here is our original shared use agreement with LAUSD was $96,000 higher than what it came out to be. So those savings had been taken out. Those savings had been realized already this fiscal year, which was driving down the total operating expenses. All in all, our net income is forecasted to be $1,800, which is about $100 different from the last board presentation. So not a big change in our net income picture for the year. However, what the governors may revise, they're proposing that there be a type of hold harmless for this year.
I'm going to go into that a little later when we talk about budget.
Okay. Dr. Jones will go into that later. So moving on to the balance sheet side, we ended the month of April with $1.8 million in cash. Dr. Jones?
Can I say one thing here, Ryan?
Sure.
What's not included so far is the over allocation penalties. Just let's not forget about that. We gotta, there is some confusion of whether they take it out of our account or whether we're going to submit checks. But the liability has been posted and needs to be accounted for. Just as an FYI.
Yeah, and that will be about $24,000. It would be for the months of April, May, and June that we do are a little higher. It's about $8,500 per month, and we have not received a bill, or we expected actually that they would take it off the top of money that they bring in to us. It has not happened yet, so we're reaching out to find out. We want to start paying that bill, quite frankly, because it's agreed upon, and we are going to be moving forward with it. It'll be baked into next year's budget and the year after that. So yeah, we need to get that piece in. I think there are also some other areas of savings that haven't been fully realized here. I think we've done a really good job of keeping legal fees down this year. We had anticipated having to spend more, especially over allocation and some other pieces. And so we think in the end, we're still going to have at least a balanced budget, if not something to the positive.
Dr. Jones, if you could move the screen a little bit more. Our cash at the end of April was 1.8 million. We're forecasting year-end cash of 1.2 with an accounts receivable balance of $637,000. Those receivables typically come in their entirety during the months of July and August, historically. That concludes the presentation of the dashboard. Within the packet, we have notes covering the points that I've discussed. We have an income statement, a balance sheet as of April, as well as the check register for the month of April. And that check register was reviewed in detail by the Finance Committee prior to this meeting. One of the charges on the check register is the credit card, and the credit card expense is discussed in greater detail, and we go through the entire credit card statement, and that occurred during our Finance Committee meeting. And that concludes my presentation.
And the request was made during the Finance Committee meeting to include the credit card statement as an annex to this presentation so that all the documents are there, and in case somebody has a question, then everybody can take a look at it prior to the meeting and review the document. But credit card statement is okay. And everything was properly accounted for.
Are we ready to vote, or should we give everyone a few more minutes? All right, let's vote. All in favor to approve the financials for April 2022. Frank,
Aye.
Sam,
Yes,
Pete,
Yes.
Katrin.
Yes.
It's a yes for me as well. All right, Chris, strategic plan update.
Isn't there an update on?
Oh, yeah, I missed it, the budget update. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was on the
this will
bottom.
be real brief because we're going to set up a special meeting with regard to budget. But I did want to share with everyone a few of the details that are literally, hot off the press, related to the governor's May revise, which was given on Friday. The May revise is hundreds of pages long, and what really triggers all the details of it is the trailer bills that are behind it. And so, but the governor outlined a few pieces that are of real interest for us. The first of which was what Ryan alluded to, which is some language that is being generally referred to as hold harmless. And it's basically that schools would be held harmless for the either lack of ADA percentages that they've been able to, that they typically have, that is due to COVID. The other piece of hold harmless is as year-to-year fluctuations in enrollment happen, would schools be held harmless for that? And so we didn't know how this was going to play out. Based on what the governor says in his budget, this part didn't turn out as good as we had hoped. It did provide a fairly large amount of funding that is designated as hold harmless, but basically, which was $3.3 billion of ongoing funds and another 463 million of one-time money. But the current year would be, so the year we're in right now would allow us to adjust our ADA percentage rate to pre-COVID rates, which would help us, and we would gain possibly about 1% over what we have approved. If you saw in the financial statement, our number that was in there was just under 95, was 94 point something percent. It's actually already higher than that because we've already signed off on what's called the P2 attendance period, and that had crossed over that 95 threshold that was in the budget, and so that was good news. But with this language in the May revise, if that is approved in the trailer bills and those are approved in June, then we'll actually be able to go back to our pre-COVID level, which was, I assume they're going to use it was February 29th of 2020 that we used ongoing, and that number was 96.6, I think. Biggie, do you remember the exact number on that?
96.6.
Oh, okay, there we have it. 96.6, and so that will give us a even higher ADA than our current year P2, and we would of course take the higher. So we're happy about that. But unfortunately, the governor did not say what we wanted him to say, or we had hoped he would say, with regard to ongoing and future years and the idea of hold harmless. So in January, he suggested that we continue to do a 3-year rolling average of ADA, which would where you can use either your current year if it's higher, or you can use a 3-year average, which allows you to mitigate when you have declining enrollment, that it doesn't hit you all at once and you're able to get a little bit more. So that's good. It's just that he hasn't said that this applies to charter schools, and it needs to be specifically stated that it applies to charter schools. So CCSA is all over this right now, and they are up in Sacramento trying to push that issue. But we'll see how it plays out. I'm hopeful that cooler heads will prevail, and they will treat charters in a fair way and in the same way as school districts with regard to how attendance accounting is paid out. So I'm not thrilled with that piece of the May revise. There's another part that I'm very thrilled with, and that is the cost of living adjustment, which back in January was listed at 5.33%. And it is now listed at 6.56%, which is in fact the highest it's ever been. So that's quite a, you know, and it's obviously related to inflation and some other factors that are out there. But that's a big piece that the cost of living number has gone up. But more than that, the May revise suggested that the LCFF base also increase beyond the COLA, another 2.1 billion. And that will bring us up from previous year up about right around 10% of LCFF money that was where we were of where we were last year, of where we will be in the coming year. And so that's good. When we were presented a preliminary budget, we had already accounted for only the COLA, the 5.33%. And so now there's going to be more that comes on that. We're going to get more into the details of this when we do our budget meeting, but I want you to at least have a sense of where things are going at the state level. So that's a really important piece because that's ongoing money to our base LCFF. That's money that can be used for ongoing costs. We also have there's some one-time, in fact, quite a bit, not some, there's $8 billion listed in the May revise of one-time discretionary block grant. And they're suggesting they have a couple of ideas of how schools might use these. I think they're trying to use it as the offset for STRS and PERS, which have increased. But if it's passed as the language it is right now, it's discretionary, and we would have full choice of how to use that. So that would be a good thing for us to be able to apply some state one-time money to some of the things that we had initially had with federal one-time money. If you recall our ESSER 3 funds, and we had them set for last year, and we have them set for the coming year, but it was the third year out that we did not have coverage on. So this is a way we might be able to continue on with our plan a little more with covering some of the people that we've added and those pieces. So a couple other things just real quick on the May revise. They are also putting more money into nutrition, and it's just, how does this play out for us? Because currently we are not allowed to charge for nutrition, but we have to give free nutrition, free lunch meals right now. Next year it expands to, we have to give a breakfast meal and make that available. And we also need to give a lunch meal and make that available. And these are at no cost, and we cannot charge even for people not on free and reduced. It's just simply across the board. And so the intent from California is that you get your federal money in from free and reduced lunch, and then you get your state money will cover the rest. The problem is we also get a bill from LAUSD, which is right now it's $1.50 per meal. And so we've been paying that $1.50 per meal. And that's in the current year we've been doing that. So I don't know what it'll look like next year. We're going to budget conservatively so that we don't get hit with a surprise. But we'll see if this helps our cause. It could only help our cause. It wouldn't hurt it. So we'll see what happens there. And then the final area I want to touch on with regard to the May revise is something that really isn't going to hit us in our plans for the coming year, 22-23, but will definitely be a part of our planning for 23-24. And that is the second round of expanded learning opportunities program grant. And this is the one we talked about earlier in the year where it requires schools to have a 9-hour day of offerings. And we are not at a point where we're able to staff up and create that program in the coming year. And so we weren't planning for that. We were planning for the following year and kind of saving that money and then pushing it forward at that time. So we are interested to see that they're pushing, keeping this funding going, it looks like, and it may be more of an ongoing thing. So we'll see how that plays out. And like I said, it won't affect us immediately, but it will definitely affect us in the long run as we defer these monies in the coming year, but then would look to implement that in 23-24. So those are some of the broad sketches of the May revise, and that's going to be at the heart of how much income is coming in. I think we have a pretty good handle now on what our expenditures would be and what we're planning for there, but it's the question of income, and this can only be to the good of income, but how much, and does that solve our gap that we had, which was at the April meeting about 300,000. So that's going to be an important picture, and then we've done some tightening since then. So that'll be a part of the budget discussion, which will happen. I believe that's later on in the agenda to set the date for that for a special meeting related to budget. So any questions about the May revise?
Frank,
Nope.
Sam?
No.
Pete?
Nope.
Katrin?
No.
All right, strategic planning.
All right. When we met last, we had made some approvals to the changes that we had talked about in March, and we did those. And so I have taken those off yellow, and those are now a part of what I put in the folders. The only real change on this was the discussion we had about where staff we wanted to see be sure that we are supporting with competitive compensation, and that we had things that were in here related to staff training. And so this was a bullet that I added in because this was a conversation that was mentioned several times by our staff, I'm sorry, by our board. This is listed in the academic achievement for all students section. We also had comments that were related to employees. At the bottom bullet here was the marketing to potential employees as making GICS an employer of choice. And I'm sorry. Was there something in finance? Work towards competitive salary and schedules and compensation packet is listed in finance as well. So those are a couple of areas. And then what was the other one? Just the bullet above here about the work that we do with training and also visa status to maintain our highly qualified staff, and then professional development for articulation and building of curriculum and assessments. So that was the bullet change that was in there. Any other suggestions? My hope would be to bring this back for just final approval in our meeting in June, first meeting in June.
Frank,
No,
Sam,
No other suggestions. I appreciate the way you integrated the staff part into here. Just a question. So once we approve it, what's the next step for your team to then operationalize it?
So that's a great question. And it's taking stock from our, starting with the administrative team, but also sharing this out with our entire staff and making sure that these bullet points are known and that people are aware. We would also be sharing this out with the entire community, that these are areas that we think are important in moving forward. The 4 main headings, but also the sub bullets of things that, and in some cases that we're already starting or heading in those directions. So this is I think that's the first phase is making it very public so that people are aware that we have some very specific things that we think are important. And then it comes down to administration, operationalizing it, and working through each each area and each bullet as we're heading in the next couple of years.
Nothing from me, thanks.
Katrin,
Nothing further. Thank you.
Chris, I would imagine further to Sam's point, we should probably put this into the annual objectives of the organization, respective of each administrator's department. Does that make sense?
Related to,
Well, because her question was operationalize it, right?
Right.
Like, this is great. It's good. This is the list. This is what we're going to do. But the next step on this is to trickle this down, which you said you would.
well, I think it would be creating basically a matrix of who's doing what.
Exactly. And that's fine. And then we can check up on it quarterly or biannually.
Yeah.
Perfect. Cool. Sam, does that sound good?
Yeah. So that would be next year's plan.
And that's great. Thank you.
All right. If there is nothing further regarding this topic from the board members. All right, Chris, vendor review.
Wow. Okay, each year of the past 3 years, we have been doing a vendor review and just kind of taking a look at the big picture of all of the different vendors that we keep. Let me make this at least big enough to see. Move this out of the way. These are in alphabetical order, and we can see across the years, we have a cost factor to see, and then we make a judgment. The grading system is a judgment based on the users, and we kind of do an inter-office poll of how satisfied we have been with these folks. And we try to we expect people to be an A, and we have a couple of Bs, and where we have something lower, we need to make adjustments. So I shared this document with the board, and just want to give you a chance to ask any questions about it. Our intent is to move forward with the groups that we have, with the exception of the Code Rev coding company, which the in class was great, but we had difficulties with reliability and of the company and connecting and having them follow our guidelines and needs. So we are going to look for another option come next year, and that's the this line here, Code Rev. These are all the different groups that we work with. One that is new down at the bottom here is called Scoot, and we've only had a couple weeks with them, but they do substitute teachers, and I can say that that's one that is we are really pleased with what we're getting in terms of responsiveness and service. That is had not been our experience with some other groups that were unable to follow LA Unified's substitute teaching rules, and during COVID, and Scoot was able to, and so it's a high cost factor, but it's that's very comparable actually to other programs that are out there. The other one that I do want to just mention is we upgraded Total Education Solutions to an A, and they do our special education programs. We think our special education delivery this year has been the best we've ever had. We've been maintaining above 90% of our service provider minutes, and that's part of the work that the coordinate. We included the coordinator, which we used to do in-house, which was a combination of our RSP teacher who did the coordination. We instead had Total Education Solutions coordinate, and we think that has really made an enormous difference. The coordinator from TES meets weekly for an update meeting, and they keep right on track of what's happening with all the folks who are service providers. So we've been really pleased with that one. But open to any questions about our vendors.
Frank?
Yeah, I think we should add a column for the, some of the, a column with, for example, Total Ed Solutions with the total cost over the years we had. I understand, they are different, they are variable. For example, if we had, depending on what special needs kits we have, special ed kits we have. But that being said, with all the vendors, we should have a total.
I think
cost.
the reason why we don't with Total Education Solutions is because it is so variant based on. So we've done it with amounts, but others that we've had for over the years, we put in we put in that way.
But we still know how much we paid Total Education Solution over the years, right? In the individual years, and we should add this so we have a total of the total vendor list. So just to have transparency on this.
Okay. Because
we know then what the outsourced services are, and they have a value because these are the service the administrative team is not doing, either because of lack of capabilities. Just not having that's a negative word, has a negative connotation, or lack of time, one or the other, right? So we know what the value is for these outsourced solutions. Thank you.
Sam?
A question, when you see, thankfully there's only one vendor on here who appears to have less than an A, but it's at a pretty low grade here. Are you guys having regular compliance reviews over your contracts and making sure that you're getting the services that you contracted for, and trying to maintain, trying to get performance throughout the year?
Yeah, most of the ones that we have are just long-standing groups that are very tied to the charter world, and they perform a kind of niche service that is like enormously helpful. and keeps us going. So each one of these groups does something that it's like that solves a big huge hole that we would have otherwise. And in most cases, they do it at a cost that we would be hiring a full-time person for a number of different scenarios, or several, certainly with some of them, where we're avoiding having to hire and hire and hire in order to perform these services.
But with the ones who like Code Rev, for example, here on D, have you been having, do you do any sort of oversight or compliance over your contracts, or is this not necessarily a contractual compliance issue? They're just not performing the way we need them to perform.
Yeah, when we have issues like that, we obviously, we're so small, we all know about it. So that it's not really a formal thing. It's that we've had dealing with having to do missing days and having to do makeups, which creates new schedules and creates all kinds of issues. And that's and then making sure people are vaccinated, and then making sure people are testing every week, and all the different pieces that we're required for everyone who comes onto campus to do. Most of our groups have been handling that just swimmingly. Yeah, there's been hiccups here and there, but that was one where it just was continuing to be enough an issue. We said we need to look elsewhere.
Pete? Katrin?
Yes, thank you. I think I'll bring up something unpopular here, an unpopular alternative, but I'll do it anyways. As I was looking at the annual total that we're paying towards XAD, and I fully understand how satisfied you are with the services that Ryan provides, but that is a full-time person and benefits and more. So and also looking at the work that he does, budget, payroll, attendance, tracking, back office support, that is work that is not going to go away or likely become any less in the foreseeable future. So if we're going to pay that amount of money every year, we might as well hire a full-time person for that, potentially even realize some savings, or perhaps minimize the contract for whatever cannot be covered internally, cross-train and free up some more capacity, because I don't think that is a 40 hours per week job currently as it is being outsourced. So just putting that out for consideration.
Thanks for sharing the what I would point out though is that this is beyond a single person. This is there are multiple people that we interface with, totally different, the different team that works on payroll. There's a totally different team that works on attendance. And then the head person is Ryan, who covers our, the overall financial piece. But these are supports that are used, that this type of back office financial is used really across the board with all but the largest CMOs. So XAD is one of the major providers. There are several others that are out there as well. My big concern on with XAD is we just switched our auditing firm, and XAD is the anchor that will be working and interacting with that auditing firm, and a change would be a difficulty. We can certainly look at what it might cost to break down these other things and what number of employees we would need to fulfill that. But I'm a little wary about that, given that the standard practice with charter schools, except as I said, with the very large CMOs where they might have brought this into an in-house system, is to use an XED or a similar back office financial service provider.
Katrin, was that sufficient?
Okay, thank you.
And we can talk further, for sure. You'll see me in the morning.
All right, another round, or are we good? Okay, thank you, Chris. Moving on to, I'd like to make a motion to approve the academic calendar for the upcoming year. Is there a second?
Second.
That's from Pete. Go ahead, Chris.
Odd year in terms of calendar. In that the calendar that was approved by LA Unified, if you followed this at all on the news, they actually added some PD days at the front end, which is interesting because we've been doing that for years. And they also included what they call expanded days for students that are voluntary. And they interspersed those throughout the year as opposed to just adding them on at the end, which I think out of thinking that people might not come if they're voluntary at the end and might be more likely to do it in the middle of the year. It was kind of thrown out there very abruptly and did not appear to have much forethought about how those 4 days were going to be used or who would be there and what if kids don't come or what if kids do come. And I mean, a whole host of questions that just seemed to be almost mind-boggling, that just didn't make sense. And we'll see how this unfolds with LA Unified. We did not put those dates in as they were listed in LA Unified. Basically, we had the PD dates at the start, which we already do, and those 4 days we included those in our days, and then from where LA Unified ends on the end of the week, we end at the beginning of the week in June. So that's basically how this is set up. We have our new teachers coming and our teacher training days as we've had in the past. So our days and numbers are basically where we're at. All of this fits within when our LA Unified campus will be open. And so we're recommending the adoption of this calendar.
All right, Frank,
No questions.
Sam,
No questions.
Pete,
No questions.
Katrin.
No questions.
Moving on to the vote. Frank,
Aye, yes.
Sam,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Katrin.
Yes.
It's yes for me as well. Upcoming board meeting topics, meeting date, or the budget, upcoming annual budget. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, so we had, I'd sent out an email seeing if the 25th of May would be a date where we could meet. And it seemed like that worked for everyone. I did not hear any dissension on it. So if we could just confirm that everyone is available for Wednesday, 6 o'clock on the 25th of May.
I am available. I might be a little bit late, if that's okay. And sweaty, just throwing that out there.
I'm good.
Okay. All right. Then at this point, the board will now convene to close session.